Hey, what's going on, everybody? How you guys doing out there? Welcome to the eye test. This is episode 8, and we're gonna start off by saying hello to Shawn. What's going on, man?
What's good, man?
How you feeling tonight?
Feeling good, feeling good, ready to talk, man. There's a lot of topics for tonight, so
Yeah, well, yeah, it's a good thing you're ready to talk because we got a lot to get into. It was
yeah,
a very inventive weekend in the NBA, NFL, baseball, everything. It's just a lot's been going on, man. And so it's a lot to cover. So let's just get into it. Um, Again, I like to just start off with the NBA because that's the sport that's going on right now. It's the sport that is doing things right outside of hockey. And we're not exactly the smartest on hockey. So let's stick to what we know. So, um, so we're just going to start off with some things that's going on in basketball. And one of the more interesting things that I've seen this week was I saw a tweet come out from NBA Central about an Oklahoma State representative who issued a statement warning Oklahoma City Thunder players against kneeling during the national anthem and threatened to re-examine the Thunder's tax benefits if players kneel. Um, this is very interesting to me because as we all know, part of the NBA's coming back. They have the Black Lives Matter. Everybody is kneeling. Well, just about everybody is kneeling. We'll get into that as
yeah,
well.
yeah,
But everybody is kneeling or doing their with the jersey with the names on the back and stuff like that. Um, and here we have a state representative who still doesn't get it.
hmm
Well, as we know, most people just, if they don't get it, it's because they refuse to get it at this point. And
hmm
here's just something that he says during his comments. By kneeling during the national anthem, the NBA and its players are showing disrespect to the American flag and all it stands for. This is anti-patriotic act makes clear the NBA support of the Black Lives Matter group and its goal of defunding our nation's police. It ties to Marxism and its effort to destroy nuclear families. The nuclear families thing is like that's a new reach that I haven't heard before.
Uh, I can explain that one. Actually, just real quick before you get into it, that's 1,000% because of if you look at what people are saying is if you look at their mission statement and you look at talking about Black Lives Matter, the not the movement, the organization. If you look at their mission statement and you look at who founded it and everything, it has a lot to do with the LGBTQ community,
So you're
and
talking about
that's
so he's talking about because it's funded by George Soros and all this other. Uh,
yes. So he's out there with that crowd.
okay, got it.
Got it. Okay.
Okay. Continues to
yeah.
say if the Oklahoma City Thunder leadership and players follow the current trend of the NBA by kneeling during the national anthem prior to Saturday's game, perhaps we need to re examine the significant tax benefits the state of Oklahoma granted the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Mhm.
Now, how you feel about that, Shawn?
Man, okay, so let me tell you. So I've been trying to, I mean, even just now, I'm over here trying to look up exactly what tax benefits and tax breaks that he's speaking of, because he didn't say to the OK, he didn't say OKC players. He said to the Oklahoma City Thunder. I don't know if that's all inclusive to the players and the organization, but that's what it sounded like to me. Um,
Now,
it,
I
it
do want to interject just for a second because I was really thinking like, what benefits are the players getting that the regular citizen that's working from out of town isn't getting? But now, if we're talking about the organization itself, that makes a lot more sense as
that's
to
what, and
what he is speaking
yes,
of.
that's the
Because
way I took it. Oh, my bad. Go ahead.
Oh no, because as we know that um, part of the reason why teams usually end up staying in a city or leaving a city when renegotiating comes up is because of basically what that city can do for them, and basically um, the teams that are in these cities, and they watch, like the city and the team wash each other's hands. Like basically, you do something for me, I'll do something for you. Um, we attract we attract out of towners by winning games and attract business into the city. So what can you do for me? That type of stuff. So that makes more
Yes.
sense now when I think about it from that angle, that he's speaking about the organization itself and not the players. And continue.
All right, yeah. So that's the way I took it. Yeah, they're talking to, and even though the players are included in that, obviously they're trying to put the players in their place, so to speak. So I do understand that, but I feel like there was more talking to the organization in the sense of, yeah, we're trying to put the players in a place they need to hear this, but organization, you guys are the ones that need to keep your players in check. And if you want us to keep on being friendly with you business wise, then you need to control your people. And that's the way that I took it, with the reason, with the threat, you know what I mean? And I don't care what the tax breaks are, Mark, to be honest with you. I don't care what they are. I don't care how much it is. I don't care what tax benefits they talk about. The point of the matter is you're trying to silence people by way of a financial threat. You see what I'm saying? It's kind of a big deal. Somebody like that shouldn't be in charge of anything, let alone running a city or
Or
state
state.
or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
you just shouldn't be. You
Shouldn't
shouldn't.
represent that state.
You shouldn't represent anybody. You're supposed to be representing the people, man. And you know what? Whether you like it or not, those players, that organization, are people that live in your state and they work in your state. So
Well, let's speak to why the state representative would feel comfortable with saying that in the first place. Um, this
yeah,
is Oklahoma. This is the home of the Tulsa rally that recently happened, um, which a state senator, a black state senator, uh, he's recently passed because he caught the coronavirus at the rally because they were doing the patriotic thing of not wearing masks. You so if you're listening, you missed my air quotes. But yeah, they're
yeah,
like, so they doing all these they, and also Tulsa is also the home of where Black Wall Street burned down, and so like there's an unfortunate history of Oklahoma just being against, like not like being against the progressive cause.
yeah,
And that's just to put it lightly and to keep it
very
PC.
lightly.
So so it's not surprising that an Oklahoma State representative would even feel comfortable to say a comment like this in the first place. Um, so I don't know, man. Like, where else do you go from there? Like about the representative?
Now this, okay, man. All right. So let me put it this way. Now, remember we had this conversation on one of the last episodes where we talked about the NBA flexing their muscles, so to speak, or using the power that they have to stand in on these types of situations
Right.
where you could be helping the city, you could be helping these people and all this stuff. You know, they have their own bit of uh, problems with the police, in the black community in Oklahoma, in the state of Oklahoma, especially places like Tulsa. And if you don't know, Tulsa is literally, like, I want to say 45 minutes, 45 minutes to an hour outside of Oklahoma City. It's right there down the road. Like,
Right.
it's right in their backyard. That was the scene of the shooting of the black man on the highway where they asked him to get out the vehicle. They asked him to put his hands up. They asked him to walk towards them. he did all that and he still ended up getting shot. You know, like these things happen a lot in Oklahoma. I've been there. I've been to Tulsa. I understand it. So, but this is a perfect opportunity, NBA. You have a team in a city. I believe the Oklahoma City Thunder organization has been one of the better organizations. They seem like they have younger leadership in the front office. They seem to be progressive. So I would expect them to do something or do the right thing in this situation and speak out against the representative. But this is another one of those moments where if you're an owner, I'm looking at the owners to be like, hey, man, there's a city that's dying for a team right now, that will take you and treat you well, and you won't have these types of problems there. It just so happens to be the same city that this team came from. There's options out there. You can go there. You probably actually make more money there and do bigger things there, as far as ownership goes. Now, with that said, I mean, I don't expect them to take this and rub it in and say we move in the team, but there has to be some type of pushback from the NBA team in situations like this. We have the Black Lives Matter painted on the courts. We have people kneeling and wearing Black Lives Matter T-shirts at the games. But now you got somebody spitting in the face of what you're trying to do, what you're trying to do in the movement that you're trying to support. So now what are you going to do about it? So I'm curious to see how the NBA handles the situation and what they plan to do next.
The state representative isn't that. More than likely, that was all bluster and just something that he felt like tweeting out. And
it is.
And if he doesn't do nothing, the NBA ain't going to do nothing. Like that's just pretty much.
I get that, but okay, I get that. But if somebody were to physically threaten you, Mark, or just to stand in front of you and threaten to punch you, you're not just going to sit there. You might even go as far as to taunt them and say, yo, go ahead and do it. What we doing? You know what I'm saying? Right. There's going to be some type of response, man. And that's the way I feel like this situation is. It's like you're trying to make yourself look big and stand up in front of me and say, you know what, we're going to get rid of your tax breaks. Let's see if y'all going to kneel. It's almost like you're daring me to defy you, and either you go and you defy them or you come out with a statement is what I'm saying. There has to be some type of rebuttal. Or for me, anyway, for me to be happy with the situation, I would like to see some. You don't have to say nothing. Just have the team go out there, kneel, and get it over with. But either way, I would just like to see. If I don't see that, then I would like to hear a response from the Oklahoma City Thunder organization.
Listen, in general, man, here's my overall thing that I have a problem with. I have a problem with just the willful ignorance of people not getting it at this point. Like, to say that kneeling is an anti-patriotic act, like the fact that anyone out there would come out their mouth to say this when in fact we know that the kneeling itself came from a Marine. Like, it came from a military member that said, yo, instead of sitting during the national anthem, take a knee. Like, we know what that, so like to say that is an anti-patriotic act, like it's actually still showing the way that I view it is it's showing respect while still showing disappointment. The country itself has failed a group of its citizens since its inception and has done very little to fix it. So why would I stand proudly for something when I'm not properly represented within it? Like, and to continue on, like, I don't have a problem with anyone that chooses to stand during the national anthem because we all stand for for your particular reasons. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Like for instance, some players that chose to stand over the weekend was Miami Heat center Meyer Leonard, San Antonio Spurs coach Greg Popovich, and we know Greg Popovich is with the shits. Like we know Greg Popovich is one of those guys that doesn't hold his tongue about the unfair treatment of people of color, and we know that he knows what's going on, but he chose to stand, which is perfectly fine.
And we already know that he comes from a military background as well.
Right.
So we don't have to question what he believes because he makes it very clear on a day-to-day basis. And then we also know his background, so we can just chop that up as we already know what he's thinking, but we also know why he stood.
Right. And Becky Hammond, she also decided to stand, and referee Brent Barnaky, he decided to stand as well. And these are all fine. But the one that I do take issue with, I take issue with Johnathan Isaacs and his reasoning for not kneeling. I don't take issue for him not kneeling. I just take issue for his reasoning for not kneeling. I would like to go into a quote of his reasoning for not kneeling. He says, "I believe that Black Lives Matter. A lot went into my decision, and a part of it is I thought that kneeling or wearing Black Lives Matter t-shirt doesn't go hand in hand with supporting Black lives. So I felt like just me personally, what is that I believe is taking on a stance that I do believe that Black Lives Matter, but I just felt like it was a decision that I had to make, and I didn't feel like putting the shirt on and kneeling went hand in hand with supporting Black lives. I believe that for myself, my life had, now this is the part that tends to bother me. I believe that for myself, my life is supported by gospel of Jesus Christ, and everyone is made in the image of God, and that we all forge through God's glory. Each and every one of us do things that we shouldn't do and say things that we shouldn't say. We hate and dislike things that we shouldn't hate and dislike. And sometimes it gets to a point where we point fingers whose evil is worse. And sometimes it comes down to whose evil is most visible. So I felt like I wanted to take a stand on we all make mistakes. First of all, right there, we all make mistakes. That's a problem. I'm going to come back to that when I finish this quote. But I think that
I was going to say, if you don't talk about it, I will. Go ahead.
But I think that the gospel of Jesus Christ is that there is grace for us, and that Jesus came and died for our sins, and that if we all come to an understanding of that, and that God wants to have a relationship with us, that we can get kept all things in our world that are messed up, jacked up. I think when you look around, racism isn't the only thing that plagues our society, that plagues our nation, and that plagues our world. I think coming together on that message that we want to get past not only racism, but everything that plagues at us as a society, I feel like the answer to that is gospel. All right. Now,
please break that down.
Now, mind you, I had trouble getting through that quote, mostly because he was speaking on the fly, and that was a direct quote. So a lot of those words were jumbled up. But so I just don't want nobody thinking I'm retarded out there and I can't read. Anyway, this kid, man, like I understand his Christian faith and I understand that part. But when you go into saying things like we all make mistakes, and we all hate, we all this, and it's all about whose evil is more visible. Well, listen, man. I mean, let me inform you of something, John. Leaning on somebody's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, it's not a mistake, friend. There's no mistake about that. There wasn't a mistake
Mm-hmm.
made in that situation. That was purposeful. Like, and far too often we have seen purposeful acts happen towards black people in this country. In New York, when the woman called the police on a gentleman simply because he asked her to leash her dog in that particular area of Central Park where she was supposed to leash her dog, she called the cops and was fair and made sure to say she felt threatened by a black man because she expected a particular response. That wasn't by accident.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yep.
these things aren't
Oh.
by accident. Black people are hunted within this country, friend. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
these things aren't by accident. Like so you can't say we all do this, we all do that, whatever. I don't see white people being lynched up in trees. Like that's not happening. That's not happening to everyone. And and yes, you are right. Police brutality happens to everyone. Police brutality happens to everyone.
That I will say. Go
Yes.
ahead.
But it happens at a disproportionate rate to black people. Like it's
Yes.
fair to say that yes, police brutality happens to everyone, all in the same.
Mm-hmm.
But it's far more disproportionate when it happens to black people. And it's funny how the few times that when police are held accountable, most of the time it's because it was a black police officer that did something to a white person. Interesting how that works
Hmm.
out.
Yeah, it's just like
So,
magic.
so you saying, well, I think it's like we all are people, and basically you went a roundabout manner of saying all lives matter. That don't work like that, friend, because we are aware that everybody does something, but something is, but like, don't be naive to what it stands for, what is going on, man. We black people, and black people have been done harm in this country. Black people are being done harm. Minorities are being done harm within this country at a disproportionate rate. Like this is what that represents. Because we're saying we matter. We exist. We should have the right to live a life the same as everyone else. That's all that's saying. And the
Mm-hmm.
fact that it still needs to be explained to you, a black person who lives in this world, who should have had the education simply because your mom and dad had taught you these things,
Mm-hmm.
or like that you learned it in school, you should have learned it outside of school. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what to tell you, brother. And it seems like, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's very unfortunate what happened to you in your knee, but it seems like that was some karma coming back on you real fast.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, because for those that don't know, he tore his ACL in the very game that he chose to stand. Now, like I said, I don't have a problem with people that choose to stand because Meta World Peace, he said that he would stand if he was playing in NBA today, but he said he would stand because he does not believe in kneeling in front of the enemy. Like,
That's a whole totally
like
different
that's a totally
thing.
different reason for why he chooses to
Yeah.
stand. Like entirely different reason why he chooses to stand. And but
Mm-hmm.
that's the way he views like the Meta World Peace is a totally different being. Like, you know what I'm saying? We know that like
Yeah.
he's part of the reasons why the Malice in the Palace popped off and all that, you know what I'm saying? But the way he views things is the fact that he looks at it the enemy because we are being hunted. You would view most people would view someone as the enemy when being hunted. Like that's just a natural reaction.
Yeah.
So, man, how you feel about his
Man.
comments?
See, man, whenever people, I personally love it when people try to quote the Bible and they want to bring up Bible talk. And as somebody who was raised in a church for a long time, most of my childhood,
Mm-hmm.
um, something that I became very familiar with. So as he's sitting here saying that we all make mistakes and this and that, I do know a few things that the Bible says. In order for you to repent, part of the repenting process is actually feeling sorry and regretful for what you're doing,
and acknowledging that you did wrong in the first place.
acknowledging that you did wrong, and then the final step of that is it's not just asking for forgiveness, it's then going on and doing your best to not make that not mistake, because I don't want to call it a mistake, but to not do that again. You know what I'm saying? Like you're actually actively doing what you can in your power to not do it again. That's somebody who's truly repented. It's not just like, hey, I asked for forgiveness. Now that I got my forgiveness, I'm just gonna go back to doing whatever I want to do because I'm good now. Like, no, it's not. You're not saying, it's not the same process of saying sorry to somebody. It's basically like, hey, excuse me. Jesus is like, hey, man, I'm willing to forgive you, but the only way that I can forgive you is basically if you promise not to do it again. I understand you're human, and we all falter, so there's a chance that you might mess up. But as long as you're walking the right way and doing things the right way and actively trying not to slip up, then all will be forgiven. But if you're intentionally going out there and still doing the same thing, then you're just out there committing sin. You're not getting forgiven. You know what I'm saying? So the first step is just admitting that you're wrong and then asking for forgiveness. We're not getting no admittance of wrongdoing. We're not getting any asking for forgiveness. We're not getting any sorries. We're not getting any of that when all this stuff happens, okay? So I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that Bible talk, because furthermore, when he's talking about mistakes, you hit the nail on the head, man. It's not a mistake. These things are intentional, and when questioned about it, they feel justified. Right. So therefore, it's not a mistake. They didn't make a mistake in their minds, so I will not call it a mistake on the part of them. Man, and when he says there's a lot more things, it's not the only thing that is plaguing our nation and plaguing to me, that's basically the same as saying, well, what about violence in Chicago? What about black on black violence? To me, I viewed it exactly the same way. You can't sit here and say it's not the only thing.
What about the pollution in the oceans? Like, nobody gives a fuck, man. Like, yo, literally, I'm talking about this, and you want to talk to, like, I'm talking about, please don't shoot me because of the color of my skin, or please don't disregard my life because of the color of my skin. And you want to say to me, well, you're not the only one with issues, sir. There's pollution in the skies right now. Do you know that the ozone layer is thinning? Like, no. Like, why are you talking to me about that? Like, I'm focused on this issue and you want to disregard it because it doesn't fit whatever narrative for you. Like,
stupid. Yeah, like, man, it's just cherry picking quotes from the Bible to suit your narrative is ridiculous. I really despise people that do it. It really strikes a nerve with me. The Bible also says, you have to be either hot or cold. You know what I'm saying? If you're lukewarm, God will spit you out. That's what it says. Like that's what it says. You looking real lukewarm right now to me, Johnathan Isaac. So. Hey. So dismissing what's happening to us and just saying that there's more problems in the world is kind of I feel it's disrespectful.
Like whether or not he meant to be dismissive, he was, because you say, yes, I believe Black Lives Matter, and in the same breath, but there's other things going on. Like, there's a lot of things going on in our society and in our world. Yes, I'm aware of that. Thank you. But talking about this issue, which is a fixable issue, can we address this issue right now? Like, and then we can move on to the next
Okay.
issue when we can address this issue of basically the slow genocide of Black people in America.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I'm trying not to get. I see. I just went Bible heavy with everything and religious angle because that's the way he went out and did it. So to me, I'm gonna say one more thing about the Bible stuff, and then I'm gonna get into what he could have done. Okay, so I do recall apparently when Jesus was walking around and he was doing his thing and trying to spread the word and trying to save people. He wasn't just walking by homeless people on the side of the road or walking by people that needed assistance and being like, hold on, dog, I got bigger fish to fry. Like that wasn't happening, man. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't like, even if you thought there was a bigger problem, he still would have stopped and helped that person no matter what the
Yeah, he
situation
wasn't like,
was.
your leprosy, you need help with that? Nah, man, I gotta go make it to this beach. I gotta feed all these people this fish and bread. Like,
Yeah, like no, man, like this. You see what I'm saying? So like he was going into the whorehouses and trying to save them when there were a bunch of people that were marginalized that nobody cared about. You know what I'm saying? Like we supposed to, if you go to church, you're supposed to be using Jesus's life as an example, right? You know what? I'm gonna get off the Bible talk. I'm done. I'm done here. I feel like I made my point. But what he could have done, right? You could have stood up, right? You
mhm.
could have asked for a press conference after the game to speak your piece. But to me, you can't say this is not wearing a t-shirt and kneeling is not indicative of me caring about Black lives or, saying that Black lives matter, supporting the fact that Black lives matter. Okay, then that's fine. Then please tell me what you're doing and what you see is as indicative as supporting Black lives. Please tell me, because you could have came out there with a sign that had a website, URL on it, for somebody watching on TV that can go there to help support something that you're doing, you know, to help Black lives or help the community or help with all these other problems that you say exist in the world that you think happen to be just as important as Black lives. You could have done that. No, what did you do? You stood up there, you stood up, you just kind of made your decision. You stood up there. You didn't point us in no directions. These people, whether you agree with the Black Lives Matter movement or not, these people are standing on something that they believe in, that they think is going to help fix part of the world. You
Right.
stood up. You didn't send any message. If you had a message that happened to be slightly different than what they were saying, that included all people, then that was your time to do that. Don't just get up here in a press conference and say, oh, well, this matters and this matters. Well, that's not really, I mean, I think there's other ways for me to show that I think that Black lives matter. But then let's talk about it. You know what I'm saying? I remember, what's his name from the Eagles? I remember him sitting in a press conference and he was just holding up the cue cards and he was doing a mess. You could have done something like that, anything, man. But if you
Malcolm Jenkins is who you thinking of.
Malcolm Jenkins, yes, I would have rather him just stood up and then just said, hey, to me, I can support Black Lives Matter and respect the flag at the same time. I would have rather Johnathan Isaac just done that and called it a day. But it just, the way that he kind of talked, I felt like he was talking in circles to me, the way it came off. And he was just, it's almost like he didn't have a reason. He just decided he wasn't going to kneel. And then when they asked him about it in the press conference, he was winging it. So.
Yeah. All right, man. But yeah, like I said, man, I, in general, you choose to stand for whatever reason. I, it is what it is. Do you have your thing? I just have a problem with people that still are pushing that, like, well, everybody does something bad or like, come on, man. Like, if get out of here with that. That narrative is dead and tired. At least Johnathan Isaacs didn't try to push that narrative on other people.
Yeah.
I will say that.
Yes.
But but people were going in on him, man, because a lot of people found it very ironic that, hey, you chose not to take a knee, and and they came right back on you. That came right back
Hey,
on you, man.
hey, you know what? He decided not to take a knee. Everybody kneeled down on their left knee. Just so
Yeah,
happens to be the same ACL that got torn. You know, it's like if you don't want to take a knee, we'll take a knee from you. It just kind of
yeah,
felt like
yeah.
poetic justice,
I
you
saw a
know?
meme that said he did all that God talk and decided not to take a knee, and God took his knee. And I was like, oh,
Man, look, you know what? And I didn't
well,
want to jump on that. I didn't want to jump on that train where they was going in on about anything because it's unfortunate the young career,
yes, it
kind
is.
of getting
It's very
derailed a little
unfortunate.
bit. So yeah, so I didn't want to jump on that train. Did I look at the memes and chuckle? Yeah, I did. But but at the same time, man, like I'm not gonna sit here and tell him, that's what he gets. You know what I'm saying? I'm not a vindictive person like that. So but
Right.
but well, he has plenty of time to think about it now.
Yeah, yeah. He's. I wish him a speedy recovery, and hope his rehab goes well. But yeah, But speaking of Black Lives Matter and all these shows of, I guess, shows of protest and shows of support for uh, for social justice issues in the NBA. There was a lot of talk on Twitter and in sports radio and the such of fans saying, "Well, if they do this, if they have the Black Lives Matter on the court and they take a knee and this, that, and the third, I'm not going to watch the NBA. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. You won't see me watching sports when it comes
Yep.
back." Well, lo and behold, that seems like that was a bunch of nonsense. People were just talking
A lot of tough
because
talk.
not only is the NBA back and everybody is watching still, but the numbers are slightly up from what they were prior to the shutdown. Um, so some of the ratings here, it says ESPN averaged 1.1 and 1.8 for Lakers Raptors on Saturday night and 1.1 and 1.7 um, for the Rockets Mavericks game on Friday night, both above the network's pre hiatus average of just under 1.5. Um, and the Houston Rockets and Milwaukee Bucks game, which was probably the big game of the weekend, averaged a viewing of 2.44 million viewers and a rating of 1.5. So, as you can see, people are watching. No one is letting the protest and the support of social justice issues get in the way of them viewing their sports. Um, so that was just a bunch of bluster, which we all kind of knew what it was. And I'm pretty sure half the people that were saying I won't be watching, they probably weren't watching that much in the first place. Um,
Yes.
yeah, so it's just a quick thing that I wanted to bring up. You have any thoughts on that?
Whew. Yeah, man. I'm glad that the numbers are what they are. And once again, this goes back to the point of the conversations that we're having right now on the show, the amount of viewership that's happening, and the fact that players are being asked about the Black Lives Matter stuff, or the players are being asked about the social justice stuff. It just points to, once again, the season continuing on having an impact on the cause. So I'm glad that the viewership numbers are up. I'm glad that these topics are coming up on sports talk shows. People are seeing these things. Players are being asked questions. Um, Man, it's great. It's great. It shows me who's a person who's pretty cynical, man. I have a cynical, kind of pessimistic view on the world at times. It's showing somebody like me that, you know what, maybe there isn't as many people out there like that I think there are, because the viewership clearly didn't go down, as you said. It actually, the fact that it's hovering around what it was before is amazing. Um, Kudos to the NBA for actually putting out a product that lend itself to have that much viewership. We all saw the scrimmages. We all saw the difference between the scrimmages and the games, and it was a huge difference.
Yeah,
And
the scrimmages didn't show the people watching from home and the Zoom viewership. It also didn't have the CGI'd team logos, and it also didn't have the pumped in crowd noise. When you put all those together, it actually created a very great product that just felt normal, felt right.
yeah, yeah. So yeah.
Speaking of NBA games and TV ratings, like we said, that one of the higher rated games that started up was the Milwaukee Houston game from Sunday night, and where Houston won by a score of 120 to 116. Um, did you catch any of that game, Shawn?
Yes, I did. I think I caught part of the first quarter, like towards the end of the first quarter, and then I caught pretty much to the end. So I watched it through. Yeah, I saw the game. What, did you watch the whole thing?
Yeah, man. Well, here, for anyone that doesn't know, I am a Russell Westbrook fan. Like, Russell Westbrook is my favorite player in the NBA. And because I don't have any sports team affiliation, pretty much my sports team affiliation goes with where my favorite player in the NBA goes. So, of course, I watched it because this is Houston versus Milwaukee. As some of you may already know, there is bad blood between James Harden and Giannis Antetokounmpo. Harden basically said I could do what he could do too if I was 7 foot, whatever. It basically takes no skill to do what Giannis can do, and so very disrespectful words by Harden. And this was also a game in which you probably won't see that often, but three former MVPs were on the court at once. One being Giannis, the other being James Harden and Westbrook, who are on the same team. So, man, just tell me your thoughts about the game, man. How'd you feel about it?
Whew. Game kind of went the way I thought it would for the most part. You have the Rockets. Me and you had this conversation a while ago when it happened. We like the fact that the Rockets went to the smaller lineup because of them going to the smaller lineup, it affords Russell Westbrook to take less three-pointers and actually opens it up for him to do what he does best, which is seemingly going to the hoop with reckless abandon and finishing strong, drawing fouls, taking his mid-range jumpers when he sees them, So, but either way, in a nutshell, allowing Russell Westbrook to play aggressively and then still be able to get his assists and dish the ball out when he needs to, that doesn't. To me, I feel like this doesn't disrupt Harden's game as much as the old style and old lineup did when Clint Capella was on the squad. So I enjoyed what I saw from the Rockets. They're just gonna take a bunch of threes.
I'm gonna let you know right now. I didn't. I'm gonna get into why I didn't, but I didn't. I didn't enjoy it.
Well, let me get into this then. Like them going small, them playing small against Giannis in the Bucks is exactly what they needed to do. I mean, doesn't matter. They're not going to change the style anyway. We talking about Mike D'Antoni and the Rockets. They ain't going to change what they do for nobody. But it's a style. It's a game of styles, and we know. To me personally, I think Rockets have the upper hand in the mismatch. All of the Bucks players are like 6'8" and above. All of the Rockets players are like 6'7" and below. Like, they're going to run circles around him on the court and get easy buckets. That's the way that I see it. D'Antoni said he wants layups and three-pointers. Guess what? They're going to have a hard time. The biggest thing that I noticed,
D'Antoni's an idiot.
I'm not disputing that. But in this case, like I said, the styles, I feel like Rockets style matches up better for them than Bucks style versus the Rockets. But the biggest issue that I've seen in the game is the issue that is always existed for the Bucks. When Giannis leaves the court, that team does not have an identity. They do not have somebody on the court or a bench player or a six-man or some. I mean, it's supposed to be Michael Redd. I'm not Michael Redd. Woof, man. I'm going back in time right there. It's supposed to be Chris Middleton. But what, like I don't understand why when Giannis leaves the court and Chris Middleton is still there, why all of a sudden production just drops off massively. He's supposed to be – he's a 50-90 – he's a 50-90-40, 50-40-90, whatever you want to call it, guy right now. Everybody's touting him to be like the best number 2 in the league right now. You know, I don't know if you want to say that. I count LeBron and AD as both number 1s, but you get what I'm saying. Like, it's just like as soon as Giannis sits down and he needs a breather, you know, it just goes downhill from there. This is the reason why Giannis plays as many minutes as he does. It's the reason why, you know, but the problem I see is when you make your team so dependent on Giannis having the ball at all times and everything goes to that. When he leaves the court, it's going to be a problem. And with a team like the Rockets, they can get ahead of you really quickly because guess what? They just out there shooting threes. They spotting up three-point shooters everywhere. So I felt like the Bucks should have won. The Rockets, I understand why you say you don't like the way that they played. The Rockets are going to beat the Bucks if they play like this. The Rockets won't beat other teams though. But all in all, the game was a good game. Giannis got his buckets. Middleton got his buckets, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough from all the other surrounding players on the Bucks.
Okay. My turn?
Go for it, man. You got it. I'm
all
done.
right.
Completely done.
All right, man. So listen. I'm going to just get into some things that I didn't like and why I didn't like them. Like you said, Bucks should have won this game. I'm just going to break down these numbers to you. And we usually don't use numbers and stuff like that, but this is just going to indicate the point of what I saw already on the court with my eyes. These numbers just kind of confirm it a little bit. Field goal percentage for the Bucks overall, they were 48.9%. For the Rockets, they were 39.6%. Bucks were 25% from 3. Rockets were 34% from 3. Now, so, and mind you, the Bucks should have won because I'm just going to rail off these rebound numbers. Johnathan Isaac, 18 rebounds. Chris Middleton, 12. Brook Lopez, 12. Marvin Williams, 9. So, and here go in the top numbers from Houston as far as rebounds go, 7, 6, 7. Houston as a total got 36 rebounds compared to 65 rebounds by the Milwaukee Bucks. Like these numbers 48% shooting compared to 39% shooting, and the disparity between rebounds should indicate the Bucks should have won, and they were well on their way to winning, and they broke down towards the end, and Russ put the team on his back for the most part and kept them in the game in a lot of spots. where James Harden was shooting them out of the game. James Harden and PJ Tucker were shooting them out of the game. This team was 21 for 61 from 3-point land, the Houston Rockets. How do you shoot 61 threes, bro? How do you do that? Why are you doing that? Like you said, this is what D'Antoni wants.
Hey, with the D'Antoni green light, anything's possible, Mark. Anything's possible. Go ahead.
Like, Doug, we going to get into this, man. Like, this doesn't make no sense. Like, it just doesn't make – and I'm probably going to sound like I'm all over the place with this a little bit. But Brooke, like, the problem with the small ball is there was a few plays in which I saw Brook Lopez sitting under the rim. They high pass it to Brook Lopez, and all he does is jump up and puts it in the basket. And, you know, when I say jump up, I mean like that little hop jump, because
that man is not athletic at all, dog.
Like, so, you know what I'm saying? Like that little hop jump that
the little bunny hop. Yep.
Yeah, so like but his arm touches the basket with that one hop. Like, but I watched that, and it was literally, I'm looking at these small individuals, and I'm like, there's nothing you could do to this man if they chose to do that every single play. What can you do? Like, all he has to do is get under the rim, high pass it, and he just puts it up. They could have did that all night, and it would have worked out.
There's nobody with height on that Rockets team
at all. Like, so the fact that they didn't do that all night is a failing on Milwaukee's part as a coach, like from a coaching perspective. But it is what it is. James Harden, surprisingly, maybe it's because of his disdain for Giannis Antetokounmpo. But James Harden surprisingly showed up with something that you will rarely ever see him do, which was play defense. I mean, now, mind you, this isn't something that he does, so it wasn't surprising.
You sure this just ain't playoff Harden?
No, yes.
You know,
stop, please stop.
Look, man, I'm just saying, I see him play defense.
I got to walk away for a second because you said that.
Oh, you got so? Okay.
Okay, so
yeah. Go ahead, man. I'll let you go with that, because what I was saying was, man, I've seen him play defense in the playoffs once upon a time when they was up against the Warriors when Chris Paul got hurt. You know what I'm saying? I do recall him playing defense in that series. You know, okay, maybe I was out of line for calling him playoff Harden. Maybe I was out of line for that.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, this dude doesn't play defense at all, man. But he played defense this game, and as you could tell that he's not used to playing defense. He picked up 4 fouls very early. I think he picked up his 4th foul at the beginning of the 3rd. So he didn't get the amount of time that they probably would have liked him to have in the game. But like, this team, Houston was basically trying to lose this game, like shooting themselves out of the game. PJ Tucker, 3 for 12 from 3. Like, man, once I shoot 12 times and I only made 3 of them, I'm done with that. I'm done with the 3 ball. James Harden, 3 of 12 from 3, 5 of 14 overall. Like, these numbers are ridiculous. And D'Antoni is married to this 3 ball as if he has a team of Steph Curry's and Klay Thompson's, and he don't. Like, dog, I don't care what your analytics say. If you don't got the players to perform that way, then don't do it. Like, part of the reason why Russell Westbrook game has improved is because he started playing within his range. He stopped trying to change his game to be more of a 3-point shooter and started playing into his range and playing inside of the three, and basically saying, like, basically his best shot is what they call the worst shot in the NBA, where it's a 2-point shot just in front of the 3-point line. But that's his range.
Yeah.
Like,
hey, man. That's it.
essentially
That's
his range.
yeah.
Like, and he started playing into his range, and now his percentage numbers as far as scoring is up. And like, you need all these guys to do that, because you can't like, you guys can run around the court all day, but if you guys are just missing shots, who cares? And you guys are jacking up a lot of shots and missing. Milwaukee shouldn't have lost this game. They lost simply because of a failure from a coaching standpoint.
Ooh. Okay, man. Let me talk for a minute, because I was glad that you took the stance that you did, because I had a few points to make. And I got some analytics for you, Mark. You ready?
Sure.
So they went 21 of 61 from 3, correct? That is 63 points. If they were to make 50% of those as 2-pointers, they would have 60 to 62 points, roughly the same amount. So even though, see, now that's where the analytics come in, and these people up in the booth, up in the box somewhere is like, well, we broke even. That did not hurt us. Maybe today they had an off shooting night. We didn't gain anything from it, but it didn't hurt us. You know what I'm saying? It was just as good as shooting 50% from 2. And that's the way they see that, okay? Now I'm gonna
except for here's the issue, or part of the issue is that these teams that are doing this, they're also, when they're coming down, they're not working the clock at all, because they're not looking for they're not looking for the better shot within their range. They're just taking that 3-point shot. So a lot of the times they're shooting with 18 seconds on the clock, 15 seconds on the clock. And they're not working the clock at all. At one point, the Rockets were up by 12, and they're taking shots like they're taking shots at 18 seconds. That's literally the time that it takes to get the ball up the court if you're walking. So basically, he walks the ball up the court, makes one pass, and that dude is jacking up a shot. And now he missed the shot, and it's going back the other way, giving the opposite team an opportunity to come back. That's BS.
Okay, fair points. But I just wanted to throw those analytics out there for you for the shot selection. But deeper problem, and this is something that nobody talks about, which I'm glad that you brought up. You said it was failure in coaching. Mike Budenholzer, I do not think he's a good coach. I think he's another one of these young, and you know how we like to call it, these young hot shot X's and O's. You give me a bunch of nobodies, I'll make it work. But once you give me a superstar, I'm going to fuck it up.
People, dog.
You know what I'm saying? These cats, this, like, and the thing that I don't like about Budenholzer is, like, he shows no ability to adjust. He really did. Like, yo, this is our game plan, and either we're going to beat you playing the way that we play, or we're not going to beat you at all. And the problem is, when you have a team like this that's all 7-footers seemingly, you know, Chris Middleton's playing the 3 at 6'9", 6'10", you know, like, you got all this height all over the floor, and you're playing the midget team. You know what I'm saying? You're playing the Oompa Loompa team, and you're just like, you know what? We're going to have our stretchers out here shooting threes. The whole purpose of you having stretch bigs is to open up the court so that Giannis can get to the basket, right? You want people to defend them. It gets the big men out of the way. Guess what? If there's no big men there to begin with, then you should probably use a different strategy. There's no reason for you to have your bigs out there. You know what? They should be down low, posting up. Brook Lopez should be posting up the 6'7" dude. That's what he should be doing. And Brook Lopez, he is the last of the old school down low post players. So he would eat down there. He would absolutely eat down there. But, instead, they rather have him out on the 3-point line, stretching the floor for a bunch of 6'6" dudes to get out of the lane for Giannis when that's unnecessary. But it goes back to the Toronto series. They said, you know what, we're going to pick up Giannis at half court, and there was no answer for it. Budenholzer shows no ability to adjust to situations or to read a situation and make moves within a lineup or strategy. This is what he does. This is why I said when it comes to styles, I expect the Rockets to beat them I'm expecting the Rockets to beat them. The Rockets had a bad shooting night. Guess what? The Bucks had an even worse shooting night from 3.
Exactly.
But guess what? There's only one person that goes to the hoop on that team, and that's Giannis. And he can't play 48 minutes, man. So what are they gonna do?
So here's the thing about your analytic about it's the same as shooting 50.
I hope I'm just making that especially for you because
okay.
I agree with you, but you understand. Okay. But I had to throw that out there so you understand what they.
But here's the thing, like you said, the Bucks had an even worse shooting night than the Rockets did. Okay, so let's just say the Bucks decided, we're not going to do that. We're not going to play this 3-game with you and shoot all that. We're going to play within our range. And let's say if they took away three of those missed threes and you had made 2s, they win the game.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's the problem. If you play within your range, the chances of you winning is higher because those are made shots. And who's to say that you're relegated to 50% shooting? I'm pretty sure if James Harden was playing more within his range and not taking as many threes, he'd probably be floating somewhere around – he could possibly be floating somewhere around 60% shooting.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's a possibility for him.
Yeah.
So I don't get that. I'm not with all that 3-ball is king stuff. Yeah. That's just not it.
I'll give one last comment on this, and then we can move on to the next topic, whatever it is. But when it comes to the analytics, this is the biggest problem that I have with analytics is the people that are doing the analytics and analyzing these stats, they're looking at league averages.
Right.
They're looking at league averages. They want to run analytics for the league average. They want to run analytics for the team average, but they don't want to run analytics for the individual. Because I'm sure if you looked at the analytics for Russ Westbrook, you would see that he's better off going to the hoop for a layup or shooting a mid-range jumper over a 3-pointer.
Right.
You have to know that. You have to know that. If you look at the individual, analytics, because it'll be that way for a lot of players, especially the older players that have been in the league for a minute, that aren't part of this new wave of cats that were taught from high school and college to shoot the 3-ball, So it's the thing, when you have a special player like that on your squad, it would behoove you to look at their personal analytics and not just look at the analytics. If you're going to use analytics, look at the tapes too, man. There has to be a combination of both, a healthy combination of both for you to maximize the potential of your roster. And that's my problem with the analytics. They want to look at only that. They don't want to look at the tapes. They don't want to look at the individual analytics. So Until teams start doing that with the analytics, then it's not going to mean anything.
All right. Well, yeah, with that being said, man, Rockets did get the victory. And I do want to just point out that out of the 3 former MVPs, my guy was the best one on the court. Well, actually, that's not true.
Giannis balled.
Giannis balled, but Giannis lost. So
Giannis did not get the job done. You're right.
So Giannis don't count. But between Russ and James, Russ has been the better on the team as of late, as of the second half of the season, even pre-hiatus. And
he's been more consistent for sure.
And it seems like it's carrying forward. I just want to put that out there because there's a consistent narrative about Russ that I'm not going to assist, and I'm always going to tell you the truth about Russ, whether he plays good or bad. And this just happens to be one of his better performances. So anyway, moving on to another game that I watched recently, the Spurs 76ers. But before I get into that, man, I just want to say for a team that lost to the current champs by a quadruple bounce in Game 7 on the buzzer just last year.
Yeah.
The Sixers look awful. They now. Whew, I need to. I guess I should clarify that statement. The reason, because everybody would say they're going to the playoffs, they have a winning record, all this other stuff. You can't say they look awful. I say they look awful relative to their talent. They, relative to their talent on that roster or their talent level, they look awful. They look trash, man. What's going on with them, bro?
It's just the amplification of what's going on with them at any other time of a regular season. You know what I mean? What this time off has showed me is it's very clear who was working in the off season on their shit and who wasn't. Clearly, there's a dude by the name of T.J. Warren that has been working on his game during this break. And apparently there's an entire team named the Philadelphia 76ers that have not been working on their game. There's coaching deficiencies.
No, that's
lack of motivation.
Number one.
So there's coaching deficiencies. There's a lack of effort, I feel, on because defense is a lot about effort. It's about physical, attributes, but it's also about effort, man. It's about a little bit of skill involved, but I mean, to stay in front of somebody, it just takes effort. To raise your hand and contest shots, it just takes effort, man. And I feel like I'm not seeing that from the Sixers. And to be honest, you mix that unmotivated attitude with the bad coaching, and you get a recipe for disaster. You know what? I'm just gonna let you talk from here because I feel like I'm just bashing them, man. I feel like I'm just bashing them, and I'm kind of feeling bad about it right now. Maybe I'll feel better in 5 seconds. Look,
it's not going to get no better over here.
Yeah.
Listen. So the highly touted defense of one Ben Simmons has been absent so far since these 8 games have resumed. In the 2 games that has been played, the opposing team has basically lit up the Sixers. You had T.J. Warren basically embarrass Ben Simmons in the previous game on Friday. And in this game on Monday, you have DeMar DeRozan, who's pretty much the only guy of note on the team. He goes off. You have Rudy Gay go off. You have these guys basically, they beat you to death. here's a point that I wanted to make because this is what I'm talking about. When I talk about you don't need the three. San Antonio, San Antonio shot at 49%, 46% from three, and they were 12 for 26 from three, and they shot 49% overall. And that's like
Make your twos.
they were making
Make your
twos,
twos. And
making
if you're
their
gonna
twos
take a
and scored
three,
130
and if
points.
and if you're gonna if you're gonna take the three, take a smart three, right?
Exactly.
Like how hard, you know what some people would call that? They would call that old school basketball. That's the old way of thinking. Well, guess what? Apparently it still works, Mark.
Yeah, apparently it worked so well that DeMar DeRozan scored 30, so well that D White, D White scored 20, but he was 4 of 6 from three. And you have Rudy Gay scored 24, and he only made 2 3-pointers. And DeRozan only made 1 3-pointer. These guys were scoring strictly from playing within their range. Now, mind you, if they were a better team overall, or if these guys were just had better talent on their team, they would be blowing teams out the water by simply playing to their range. Like it doesn't make sense, man. Doesn't make sense for things to go this way. But back to my original point, Ben Simmons, man, his defense has been missing. He let T.J. Warren go off on him. DeRozan went off on him. He had 5 fouls. Before the middle of the third.
Mark, I got a question, man. Is it possible that he's just having trouble guarding people that's the same height as him?
Hey, man, no.
I'm
no,
no,
I'm not. No, no. I'm going to shoot him bail and say no. I think he's disengaged mentally. Because
okay.
Because here's the thing: Ben Simmons strikes me as a person that will pout, and he has basically got his ball taken away from him, and he was moved to the power forward position. And I think he's being the good soldier, not saying anything, playing the position, but there's no enthusiasm behind it.
Oh, you mean like that time that him and Embiid had problems with each other, but they didn't have problems with each other?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Something like that time.
Yeah.
Like, I think he's just playing lazy and disengaged from what's going on. Yo, man, you in that cup, dog. Stop showing that trash ass team on this camera, bro.
Man, first off, you're not gonna disrespect greatness in here, man. That's what we're not gonna do, man. Look, you see that? You know what's in here? Summer watermelon. What we talk about? I'll go get that bottle, but that's red too. Are you gonna be pissed off about that too?
Summer watermelon.
Yeah.
That sounds like something that came out of San Francisco.
Man, stop playing, bro.
Stuff,
stop
man.
playing,
Get that
man.
out of here, dog.
Look, man.
Summer watermelon, man.
Summer watermelon
Sounds perfect for San Francisco.
Straight. No, nothing mixed in here. Just liquor.
That sounds about right. Sounds about right.
Man, that's straight. That's straight. You know.
Mm-hmm. Anyway,
you go ahead. Talk your shit, man. Where your Eagles cup at?
Back to.
All right, Rager.
Talk about before I was distracted.
All right, Rager.
Listen.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. You're not playing fair. I don't like
I'm not. I have to do something to defend myself.
So,
I'm sure he'll have a fantastic season, Mark. Yo.
But listen, man. This team is just they're not very good. And it starts with the coach, man. He doesn't give. There's no sense of urgency with this team, and that started with the coach back 2 years ago when they, in the Boston series, when they lost, when they were in that series, there was no sense of urgency to win that series at the time, and And then that showed when in his post-game press conferences from
Mm-hmm.
the Boston series. And it continues on and has gotten worse. Joel Embiid has often felt comfortable not being in shape throughout the season. And I say that because it's a consistent thing that he continues to do. So clearly he feels comfortable doing it. Ben Simmons feels comfortable playing within whatever game that he currently has and not taking a shot. Like, I don't want him to take a three. I don't really care if he never takes a three.
Just
If
take a
that's not
jumper.
like,
Just
yo, just give
something,
me a
man.
mid-range, something.
Yeah.
Do something. Like, and now because because of finally, like I've already addressed this before, finally after 3 seasons of watching this dude's refusal to take a shot, you finally move him to power forward, but now he's like something in his game is off because his personal defense is not up to snuff. Um, and this is unlike him. But this is only 2 games in for them. Game 3, I would like to see a better effort. Maybe
Hey,
we will see a better effort. One,
hey, Mark. Real quick. Sorry, man. Sorry to cut you off, but
no, you good.
this is exactly what I was talking about. The adjustment time period that it's going to take, for Ben Simmons to adjust to playing at the power forward position. That's not just offense, that includes defense. Knowing where to be on the court, having a feel for where your teammates are going to be on the court. Having to feel like when you're rotating, when the NBA is playing, when you're one of the teams in the NBA that's playing like everybody else, and everything is about rotation, everything's about location and where you're supposed to be at. He's not used to playing from the power forward position in the NBA. In this NBA game, he's learning. He's going through the growing pains right now. Like, this is part of it. This is exactly why I said it probably would have been better, even though this is the right move. This is just the wrong time for them to move him to power forward. This is what you're going to deal with. You're going to deal with him not. I mean, you might say he looks like he's not engaged. It could just be because he's not comfortable. Now, what else was I gonna say? But with that said, man, like, I don't think he's comfortable. I honestly think this team right here has possibly the worst chemistry in the league outside of the New York Knicks. I mean, they're literally living off of their talent. That's
Right.
what gets them by. Like, it's just the raw talent that's on a team is what gets them by. And if you really look at it, you got a team that does not gel together. You have a bunch of skill sets that don't go together. You're trying to move some shit. You're trying to move some shit around now to try to make it work. And it's like, yo, the pieces just don't fit. And if they can fit, we don't know because the coach is bad.
Yeah, man. I finally understand why my teachers hated me. I finally understand why
What
my
you mean?
mom why my mom used to get so upset. All this wasted talent, dog. Like, what are you doing?
Hey, waste of potential. Hey,
Like, all
man.
this wasted potential. What are you doing? Like,
Man.
you're good already, but you're good simply because you're talented, not because you work at it, but simply because you're talented. Like, basically, what we're talking about right now is the difference. um, let's see. Um, Name a player that you think, like, just in the history of NBA or in the last 20 years, that was really talented but didn't really put in a lot of work. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Right now, we're talking about the difference between Allen Iverson and Kobe. Like,
Facts.
like,
Facts.
but like that's what we're talking about. Oh, Allen Iverson, overwhelming talent, like overwhelming talent, but he
Yeah.
did not put in the full effort to improve himself.
Well,
Kobe, on the other hand, maximized his potential.
Yeah, if you look at Kobe's arc as far as stat wise and shooting percentages and things like that, it goes up in his career. AI showed up and he lit the league on fire, and then he continued to do the same things that he did in his first year, all the way throughout his entirety, the entirety of his career, and he just got slightly better at the things that he was already good at. And
Right.
that's what you have in Allen Iverson. He walked through the gate able to drop 30. You know what I'm saying? Like you would think that at that young of an age, at 19, 20 years old, that being able to do that, he would have been able, you would be thinking to yourself at that time, like, man, I wonder what he's going to be like when he's 30. And it turns out he's going to be exactly like he was when he was 20. Like, but you're right. It's a difference, man. There's levels. Like, Kobe 10 years later is giving you a 81-point game. Like,
Right.
it's different. It's different, man. It's when you put in that level of work, man. There's been enough. Like, LeBron wasn't the first taller, bigger body guy that had skills as a passer and ball handling skills. There's been so many before him that have failed. Lamar, I remember when Lamar Odom was that guy.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And he never improved. Like, there's just a difference. There's levels to it, man. Once you put in the work with that, then you get the results, man. And clearly with the 76ers, you're dealing with two guys that don't want to put in the work.
Like, and this is my issue here is from Ben Simmons' standpoint, maybe it's a psychological issue because we see him put in the work in the gym. It just doesn't translate to games.
What work? Do you see him shooting in the gym?
Yes. He
see
shoots
him.
it. Now,
You see him take the occasional jump. He takes way more jump shots in the gym than he does on the court.
No, he takes a lot of jump shots in the gym.
No, that's what I'm saying. He takes way more.
Now,
I said way more.
Does he take 5-on-5 jump shots in the gym? No, but he takes stand around jumpers. Like, and that's the thing. Like, he doesn't.
That's not work.
No, you're right. You're right.
I mean,
it is, but it isn't.
I get what you're
saying.
It is, but it isn't. I'll go with that. It is, but it isn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get. And for those that don't understand what he's saying, basically what he's trying to say is that you standing around taking jumpers isn't a game time situation. So you're not preparing yourself properly. If you were taking these jumpers in 5-on-5 situations during practice, that is putting in the work because you are preparing for a game time situation.
Yeah, there's a reason why in football, at the end of practice, you got a scrimmage.
Right.
Because it's like, yo, we practicing all this stuff. We just handing the ball off to you. We letting you get past the line of scrimmage and then telling nobody to touch you, telling you to jog half speed. You know what I'm saying? And then when the time comes, it's like, okay, we need to see if this shit works for real. Then you practice it in the scrimmage. You run it in the scrimmage before you play that team. Like, if you just out here shooting open jumpers in a scenario that you will never be in game, what does that mean?
Right.
Like, it means absolutely nothing, man. It means absolutely nothing to me. It means absolutely nothing because it doesn't translate to the game.
All right. I don't want to stick on this topic too much longer because
I feel like we've been on it too long already. But
yeah, so let's move on, man. But speaking of NBA and the teams and people living up to the potential or not, who do you think has the potential to get let's not say win the championship because I feel as though that's too easy of a question. Who do you think will get there on both sides, East and West?
Okay, this is what I'm going to give you. I'm going to give you my contenders for the two sides. Like, I'm just going to rule out anybody that I feel like just does not have a chance. So, on the Western Conference side, obviously, you have the Clippers, you have the Lakers, and you have the Rockets. I don't know about Dallas. Dallas is looking like a young team right now. Like, they can't finish games, and you know that's a problem. in the playoffs. That becomes a problem in the playoffs, And the one person that they're relying on to finish games doesn't seem like he's been able to finish a game lately, which is Luka Doncic. Like, he hasn't been able to finish a game. He's still young, man. He's a baby, you know what I mean? These are things that people expect from you. No matter how talented you are, this is what they talk about when you walk into a playoff situation. As a young dude, you can have all the talent in the world, but what you're going to do when that pressure is on? Are you used to this? Do you know what to say to your teammates? Do you know when to take that shot? Is it in your head when you take that shot? Luka is going to go through his growing pains this year, and it's going to be – I don't expect nothing from him. But like I said, you got the Clippers, you got the Lakers, and you got the Rockets. They are all teams that are full of seasoned vets, that know what it takes to carry a team. And therefore, those are the teams that I have in the West that are contenders. My personal pick for who's going to come out of that is the Clippers, because the way I see it is the Lakers have one roadblock, and it's the Clippers. They don't have any real roadblocks. They just have the Clippers in the way, and the Clippers are built specifically to deal with them. In the Lakers, if LeBron and AD are going to continue to play horribly in the fourth quarters of these games versus the Clippers, then I don't see how the Lakers are going to surpass them, especially considering the absence of the point guards. So that's where it sits for me. On the East, I see, man, the Bucks are contenders. I'm going to throw Boston in there because they've been playing really good. The Raptors are in there as well. And then I don't even know if you could call them a sleeper anymore, but Miami, a young team in this particular setting to where it's seemingly not as much pressure because you're not on the road trying to beat a Lakers team out there in LA at the Staples Center. Like stuff like that would affect that team. But this team is it's a young team that's built for this type of setting. So if I was in the East, I wouldn't want to play Miami. They have all of the tools. They have a coach. They have everything they need, and they got young dudes that are hungry. So I wouldn't want to play Miami. I say they're my dark horse team, but I still have the Raptors coming out of the East based off of Nick Nurse being arguably the best coach in the NBA right now. And then that defense, the way that team plays defensively and the way that Nick Nurse coaches them offensively, I just don't see another team that's as balanced as them on both sides of the ball that can do what they do with the versatility that they have.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, with that, I'm going to say I have Miami as top contender out of the East.
Mm-hmm.
I have basically an Eastern Conference Finals. I see it as Miami and Toronto. I'm not sure how the seeding is, if they would see each other before that.
But those are the top two teams you got.
But yeah, I would basically see them as the top two teams in the East currently. Toronto has silently just been killing it. Sans Kawhi Leonard. So I think that's dope. And Miami's been doing the same. Erik Spoelstra is showing that he is actually an excellent coach. It's just because Miami has been consistent and has been consistently a decent team and sticking around. But now that they're back to having the players, they are doing an excellent job, and it's not like they have overwhelming superstars. They just have players that can play.
They have Jimmy Butler, but outside of that, it's just a bunch of young guys that are hungry.
Right. So, yeah, those are the only ones I see out of the East. I was hoping for more from Boston, but right now Jason Tatum is finding his game. Like something has been off with him all season. Like he's been very streaky at times, and I don't. And that team is missing something this year.
I personally just think that that's who Jason Tatum is, but that might be a conversation for another day.
Yeah,
But I do believe that that's just. I mean, if you're expecting him to all of a sudden be consistent and be that guy right now, like he's gonna just put it all together right at the right time, that's asking too much.
right. And out of the West, I don't think anybody else has a shot. From It's the Lakers, bro. The Lakers are going to the championship out of the West. From what I saw from that first night back with the Lakers and Clippers, it's the Lakers. It seemed like LeBron set out to make a point, and Kawhi
Yes.
set out to make a point as well. And LeBron just made his point more emphatically, where he said, "Look, if I wanted to play defense on you, Kawhi, I will, and I will shut you down." And that's essentially what he did at the end of the game of
Okay.
that Lakers Clippers game. He played excellent defense, and he got the job done. Now, whether or not he could do that consistently for a 7-game series, who knows? But he showed that he's quite capable of doing it and still getting his 20 plus points.
Well,
So
this is the most rest that LeBron has ever had in the last 10 years outside of last year when he missed the playoffs.
right.
He's never had this much rest, so I expect the defense, to be honest with you, I expect him to be able to, in the spots that he needs to, be able to play this level of defense throughout the playoffs. My question to you would be, since you're saying that like you like what you saw versus the Clippers in the first game, to me, the way that I saw that was they beat the Clippers by 2. The Clippers held them to 103, and Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell weren't even there. That's what I saw, and because they're such a big part of that second unit, and we know that the Lakers are missing players from their second unit, I think that that's going to be the difference maker if they were to meet up in a series, and that's why I have the Clippers going further than the Lakers. But I want to know what your thoughts are on that. Then, how did the Lakers combat that?
Say that again. I'm sorry. Ask the question again.
Yeah, how do the Lakers combat the fact that the Clippers will have Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell if they were to meet up in the playoff series? Those guys weren't there for the first game.
The way that they combat that, well, honestly, PG.
Oh, playoff PG?
Yeah.
Oh man, Dog, why you gotta do him like that? I thought you was
I
gonna
didn't
name
do that
somebody in the
to him.
Lakers.
He did that
man.
to himself.
Oh
I didn't
man,
do that.
playoff PG. Hey, you know what's funny, Mark? And you know what? And I didn't want you. I can't believe you said that, man. But I'll tell you this. I'll admit this. As somebody who's right now picking the Clippers, it worries me that at the end of that game, he had just scored the last 6 points. He made the last 3 shots for the Clippers, and then all of a sudden he went dry right in the last 2 shots that he needed to take.
All right.
Like, is it a coincidence? Is it just something that Paul George does? I don't know, man. But I just, it's very discouraging that he had a really great game. He shot like 60%, and then all of a sudden, in the 2 shots that you need him to make 1, he doesn't make any.
Right.
So
I'm going to say, honestly, like, I can really get into PG and his playoff basketball and everything, but we still have a lot of topics to get into. So I'm just going to invite any listener or anybody that's watching out there to just look up PG's playoff numbers in the last 2 years where he was playing for OKC. And particularly look at Game 7 of his first year at OKC. Tell me what you see.
Yeah,
Like,
was that Utah or Denver? It was one of them teams, man.
it don't matter. It doesn't
It
matter.
don't matter,
All
man.
that matters is that my answer to your question was Paul George. So let that be known.
Yeah.
That's why the Lakers, that will be the Lakers' answer to Lou Williams and such and such. So,
I got faith, man.
okay. So we're going to get out of
Yeah.
basketball and we're just going to start talking sports in general, man. Um, some things that's going on around sports. A very quick topic that we could get into. The Rock um, bought the XFL. One thing I hate about saying this is because saying the Rock bought the XFL makes it seem like, oh, the Rock pulled out a duffel bag and put his nuts on the table and bought the XFL by his goddamn self. Like,
Oh man, that's funny.
no, he didn't buy this thing by himself. He has partners. And I'm pretty sure out of his partnership, he probably has the least amount invested. He he's the face. He's the face of this situation, man. The Rock, and he teamed with Jerry Cardell's Redbird Capital to buy the league. Hours before it was going up for auction, the two parties split the 15 million needed to purchase the league. Danny Garcia, Johnson's business partner, who is also his ex-wife, is also a stakeholder in the league. So as you can see, like The Rock didn't buy the league. A
Why you
conglomerate.
doing them like that, man? Everybody let them say Jay-Z bought the Nets. That man had like a 1% stake in that shit. Everybody
Exactly.
ran with it.
Exactly.
Like,
That's what I don't like. It's a bunch of BS, dog. Like, no, let's
come
call it
on, man.
what it is. Like, get out of
Hey,
here with that.
didn't Patrick Mahomes just buy the Royals? How
No,
much?
he
You know
didn't
what?
buy the Royals. He bought stake into the Royals.
Look, man.
Like,
They
come
say he's
on,
the
man.
owner. He owns the Royals now. Like, okay, fine,
He,
fine.
right.
But I feel you, Mark. I agree with you, man. I hate the fact that they say, look, man, I just bought two stocks of AMD. You know, the processor chip. Do I
Right.
own that company now? I guess I do, Mark. I
Yeah. Like,
own AMD now.
yeah.
Congratulate me.
I guess I own Apple because I have 10 shares. Great.
Yeah. Come on.
Come on now. Stop it.
Mhm.
Um Now moving right along, man, into more ridiculous, possibly possibly the third best receiver, no, fourth best receiver ever to exist, but has a lot of mental issues.
Mm. Yep.
Antonio Brown retired from football and the very next day asked to be reinstated into football. And football said, sure, you could be reinstated. You're going to serve this 8-game suspension, though. And now we have the Seattle. Now we hear the Seattle Seahawks are seriously considering signing Antonio Brown. If he could keep his mind together, this will be a phenomenal move for Antonio Brown and for the Seahawks because
Man.
Russ is a monster, and if you give Russ the best hands I've seen in football in the last 15, then it's going to be a problem.
Like, okay, man. Man, this is what, as a Niners fan, this shit burns my soul, man, because the one person as a head coach that I think can pull this off is Pete Carroll. He is, as much as I see his attitude of being the player's coach sometimes gets in his way, this would be the one time where he would make Antonio feel comfortable. He would be able to manage that personality, you know. Antonio needs that type of a coach. Apparently, he had it in Mike Tomlin. He managed to make it work. Pete Carroll is right there with in the same breath. You know what I'm saying? So you got the right coach that can make it happen. you have a quarterback that likes to improvise, right? You got a wide receiver in Antonio Brown that can improvise, that can find the open spot on the field, that will find the open spot on the field. And this has been a formula for Russell Wilson for years with Golden Tate, Tyler Lockett, all these guys. Hey, man, we ran the entirety of our route. Russ is still back there scrambling around. Okay, let me find the open spot on the field. Antonio Brown would eat. And we seen what Russell Wilson did when he had Golden Tate as his number one receiver. He force-fed him. This is exactly what Antonio Brown wants. Like, this is like, to me, it's the best
landing. Here's a question. There is no one that has more confidence, like, in just, I'm just going to throw it here, and
my guy's going
you're going to make it happen than Ben Roethlisberger. Probably the only other person that was like that was Brett Favre mentally. So
yes.
Do you think Russ will basically create those situations for AB to be great the same way that Ben Roethlisberger created those situations for AB to be great?
I think he'll – okay, I'll answer that by saying I think he'll create just as many situations but in a different manner. Russ, throughout the entirety of his career, has never been a person to force balls in a double coverage. He's always been able to make plays by extending the play and letting his guys break off of the routes. That, if you look at every single big play that Russell Wilson has ever made, 85% of them will probably be him scrabbling around, ducking some sacks, and then rolling out to the right, and then him standing still and just rifling the ball downfield, and you'll see a receiver coming across to the open part of the field making a catch. That's what it is. Like, but so you wouldn't see the same situation to where Ben's just like, he's over there, I'm throwing the ball in that general direction. I just have confidence that he's going to come down with it. That's not Russell's game. That's the reason why Russell doesn't throw picks. But at the same time, I think you'll see just as many big plays with Antonio Brown, because if you're telling Antonio Brown to go out there and run his route and beat his guy, if he beats his guy, Russ will find him. If he beats his guy and Russ happens to be scrambling around and then he has to break off his route to get to the open part of the field, and Russ is going to find him. Like, I just feel like it's a perfect – I've seen Golden Tate get 100 catches in this system. Golden Tate. No disrespect.
He's just not even.
I just see that I don't see how this wouldn't work if Antonio Brown is actually showing up to play.
Yeah. Hopefully he does, and hopefully his mind is right. I would like to see him in a team that needs him. I don't want to see him on a team that is already stacked or already favored. So a team like Seahawks would be great. The only other team I possibly would want to see him on, barring that his mind is completely together, is the Philadelphia Eagles. But, hey, it is what it is. And we're just going to move right into probably one of the most important topics of the evening is college football, man. So the Pac-12, players in the Pac-12 basically wrote this letter basically saying, man, we don't feel like playing, and they're threatening not to play, threatening not to show up. And I support them 1,000%. I support them. I have gone on record on this podcast already saying I do not believe college football will happen. I said it in passing, and I just want to make that stance very clear. I do not think college football will happen, nor do I think that it should happen. One, because I don't have a problem with the NFL happening and the players putting themselves at risk and all that stuff, because the players are paid. The players are being paid to do this. The players are also grown men. They are making life decisions for themselves already at this point. And so you have that responsibility to yourself. You can do that. Now, in college football, some of these people are grown men, but a lot of them are 18, 19, just coming home. I mean, just leaving home for the
Just leave
first
it home.
time.
Yeah.
And you got these guys, you want them to make a life altering decision of whether or not to play during a pandemic, and they're not getting paid for it. All they're doing is making you a dollar. Like there's no benefit to them outside of the education, and like that's the very least that you owe them already.
Yeah.
Like in the
It's
pandemic, you gonna say that you mean to tell me that I could possibly get a life altering illness, my dream be deferred forever, and all these other things that could possibly happen, and there's no payment for me. There's nothing like that. College football hasn't even created an opt-out situation. The NFL was smart enough to create an opt-out situation for their players, as somehow college football is basically like, oh, we pretty much demanding that you play, like to the point that some schools were going to try to make players sign a waiver to play, where basically they absolve the school of any wrongdoing.
yep.
And
Insane.
luckily, the NCAA said, "Nah, don't do that." But
Yeah.
but the fact that they're thinking this way is a problem. College football should no college sport should be played right now because there's no benefit to the player really. The only benefit is to the school itself. At least in the NFL, even though the most benefit goes to the league, the players are getting the benefit of fulfilling their contract and making money. Like so the choices that they're making is is fine in of their free will versus basically like, oh, watch your dreams be crushed forever if you don't do this for me and make me a bunch of money. Like it's nasty, man. It's
Yeah,
nasty to
man.
treat
It's
kids this way.
the NCAA is just doing. This is what they do, man. They have a history of just not giving a f, not giving a fuck about the player athletes, the student athletes. They don't care, man. So eh, I'm glad that the students that these players are using the power that they have to basically stand up for themselves and say, hey, man, we're not just going to be out here running around risking our lives or the lives of our family members just so that you can make a buck, especially since y'all are trying to forcefully do that. It's a nice thing to see because you know if change happens, it's gonna have to happen. They're gonna have to look at it. If they just say they're not gonna play, what they're gonna do? They're not gonna have a season, right?
Well,
If that
I don't know if you remember, and I can't remember what team it was off the top of my head. Um, but remember when that player, not that player, but that one kid refused to eat, and because he was standing for some for some issue, and the
yeah,
players on the football team decided they weren't going to play until that kid started eating again, and
yeah.
and then the school did something about what that kid had an issue with because the players decided not to play.
I recall. I can't remember the school. I know what you're talking about, though. I remember the situation.
So the players have already shown that they have the power,
This would be on a larger scale,
much larger.
much larger scale. And to me, this is something that needs to happen so that they know in the future. Like, we might not have a union, we might not have all these other things that can protect us. We might not be able to have agents, but you know what? If we have power in numbers. And right now, this is a small microcosm just saying, hey, man, Pac-12 not going to play. That's cool. But now, if they're successful in what they're doing, which they will be, it will now lead to a situation to where they might start standing up for themselves to defend against the exploitation of their talents, because it's, I mean, they've already started to change some of the rules with how they can make money while they're playing for, a college team. They've already changed it, somewhat, and it's moving in the right direction. But this will be, this will be a bigger, obviously, like I said, this will have a bigger impact on the confidence that it's going to instill in the other players coming up, in the future. So it's a big deal. You know what I think about when I think about this situation? I go back to thinking about the kicker from Central Florida that got told that he had to shut down his YouTube page because he was doing videos about football, just joking, playing around, making references to other players on the teams and making jokes about being a kicker. And they were like, yo, you can't make jokes about being a kicker because you're a kicker on our team. So they were trying to say that he's using his likeness as a Central Florida football player to make money. And they're basically saying, nah, you can't do that, even though everything you're doing is under your name and it's on your YouTube page. They told him he had to demonetize his page or take off all content in regards that related to football, or he could just get off the team. And I recall him deciding in the end to just leave the team. He had a few people try to fight for him, but generally nothing was done because he was the only person out there fighting for himself. I mean, luckily right now he's doing amazing on YouTube. He's, his YouTube videos average anywhere between 2 million views. If you want to know who his name is, if you look up Destroying Videos, it's DEE Destroying. So it's just Destroying with an extra E in it if you're looking for him. But yeah, he's doing really well. He just put up a video of him either racing or working out with Tyreek Hill just a few days ago. But once, like I said,
hold on. I'm sorry. I just wanted to put it out there that the team that I was referring to, that went on strike, and that was back in 2016, and that was the University of Missouri. And the reason that they went on strike was in solidarity with the protest against racism on campus. That's the situation in which I'm talking about. And then once the players went on strike, magically the school started actually really doing some things to take care of the issues. So,
we can
this
move
is
on.
just to further talk about that. Students at the time at the school reported repeated use of racial slurs, and alleged swastika of feces was smeared on a building, but none of the campus incidences targeted football players directly. But football players stood in solidarity with the incidences themselves, which is not surprising, seeing how most football players are black. So this would be one of their issues as well. But anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted.
No, man, you're good. I was pretty much wrapped up, but my point of the point of all that was like 3 years ago as well, around that same time that you talk about that. It's like it's crazy how much it's grown now that they've actually deciding to band together and do this. And it's a good thing that I'm seeing this. I know there's a few players out there that probably had some situations where they wish that they had people band together for them in this way that they're banding together now for this whole playing during the pandemic.
Oh,
so,
right. All right, man. Listen, there's still other things that we probably should get into, but this one is already running pretty long, and I think we can get into this in 2 days. So we're just going to push some of these back a little bit for you guys. You okay with that, Shawn?
Yeah, I'm perfectly fine with it, man. I think we got into the NBA stuff a little bit more than I thought we would, but it was good talk.
Yeah. So yeah, excellent talk. Excellent talk. But it's just a mental reminder of things that you guys can look forward to that we'll be talking about Thursday. We'll be talking about Jordan Reed signing to Shawn's trash ass squad, San Francisco 49ers.
Stop it,
And
man.
and we'll
That
be
trash looked good. Go ahead.
and we'll be also talking about the players that choose to opt out because the at 4 p.m. on Thursday, that is the deadline to decide whether or not you're going to opt out of the NFL. So we'll see all the definitive players that are definitely opting out, and we'll get into that as well as covering any NBA games that are going to be happening, and maybe we'll get into some of the stuff that's going on into hockey as well. All right, but that's all I have for tonight, man. A pleasure talking to you as always, Shawn.
Yep, yep.
All right, you guys have a good evening.
All right, man. Later.
Yeah.